Hello there everyone and welcome back to me, Shiva Wilson, and my channel, which as you know is all about legalizing recreational cannabis in the UK. Thank you for coming, thank you for subscribing, thank you for joining me from wherever you are in the world. And today I've got for you some more fake news. It's Prime Minister's question time, but an imaginary one. So these are imaginary people. I'm going to be talking about cannabis legalization at Prime Minister's question time in an imaginary debate. So, without further ado, I shall get on with it. Unless there's any housekeeping I need to do. Are you settled and prepared? Are you ready? Do you have something to smoke upon? I have my nicotine vape here. Or maybe you want to eat one of those marvelous flower edibles that I've been eating in the garden. Anyway, yeah, get yourself settled in. This is going to be slightly long, so let's all have a moment of silence for the fake news of the Prime Minister's question time. Here we go. Right, let us begin. The House of Commons buzzed with anticipation as the leader of the opposition, a seasoned politician named Alistair Thorne, rose to his feet. His steely gaze fixed on the Prime Minister, the charismatic but somewhat inexperienced Eleanor Davies. Mr. Speaker, the nation is watching as you attempt to usher in a new era of cannabis legalisation, Thorne began. That's the leader of the opposition, his voice resonating through the chamber. But while the Prime Minister claims this bill will usher in a golden age of controlled consumption, many fear it will only serve to fuel addiction and societal harm. Eleanor Davies, her face a picture of calm determination, leaned forward in her seat. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Thorne's concerns are understandable. However, we are not simply legalising cannabis. We are enacting a robust regulatory framework. It will be tightly controlled with strict age limits, clear guidelines for cultivation and distribution, and robust public health campaigns to combat potential misuse. Alistair Thorne, undeterred, pressed on. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister honestly tell this House that she is confident this will not lead to an increase in addiction and related health problems? Will she not be turning a blind eye to the very real risks associated with cannabis use? Eleanor Davies, the Prime Minister, met his gaze, her voice unwavering. Mr. Speaker, we are not naive. We understand that legalising cannabis comes with inherent risks, but those risks are mitigated by a comprehensive approach that prioritises public health and harm reduction. We will invest in education and treatment programs and monitor the impact of legalisation closely. We will be transparent with the public and adjust our policies as needed. The debate continued, with Thorne highlighting the concerns of parents, teachers and law enforcement officials, while Davies, the Prime Minister, emphasised the potential economic benefits, the need for a responsible approach to drug policy, and the unfairness of the current system that disproportionately targets minority communities. Thorne says, this is the leader of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, I have spoken to countless parents who are deeply worried about what legalisation will mean for their children. They fear this will make cannabis more accessible and acceptable among young people. How can the Prime Minister assure them that their concerns are being considered? Eleanor Davies, the Prime Minister, says, Mr. Speaker, the welfare of our younger generation is of paramount importance. That's why our legislation includes strict age limits and penalties for distribution to minors. We're also embarking on an education campaign to inform young people about the potential risks of cannabis. Thorne says, Mr. Speaker, and what about teachers who are worried about an increase in drug-related issues in schools? Many believe that this move will only exacerbate the challenges they already face. Eleanor Davies, Mr. Speaker, we are collaborating with educators to develop comprehensive educational materials for schools. Our aim is to provide clear, fact-based information about cannabis use and its effects, ensuring students understand the consequences and remain focused on their education. Thorne says, Mr. Speaker, law enforcement officials expressed concerns about the impact on policing and public safety. Isn't there a risk that legalization will lead to an uptick in drug driving and other cannabis-related offences? Eleanor Davies. Mr. Speaker, we are committed to working closely with law enforcement to adjust resources and training for handling these new challenges. We will ensure robust mechanisms are in place to prevent drug-impaired driving and address any public safety concerns swiftly. Thorne says, Mr. Speaker, I hear the Prime Minister's points, but are the economic benefits mentioned enough to outweigh the social costs if things don't go as planned? It's a tough debate. Eleanor Davies comes back with, Mr. Speaker, the potential economic benefits include significant tax revenue, job creation, and the growth of a new sector. More importantly, by regulating cannabis, we can redirect funds from the illicit market into public services that improve community well-being. We will track the social impact closely and redirect resources as necessary. Thorne comes back with, Mr. Speaker, lastly, what about minority communities who already feel marginalised by current policies? How does this bill address the disparities in cannabis-related arrests and sentencing? Eleanor Davies, the Prime Minister, comes back saying, Mr. Speaker, the current system indeed disproportionately impacts these communities. By legalising and regulating cannabis, we can ensure more equitable application of the law and expunge past minor offences, giving many individuals a fairer start. Our focus is on restorative justice and community support programs. The Prime Minister, while appearing confident and composed, struggled to sway the opposition, who seemed determined to paint her as naive and reckless. She did, however, make a strong case for the need for change and the importance of addressing the issue of cannabis head-on. The debate continued without a clear winner. The opposition's concerns were valid, but the Prime Minister's arguments for a nuanced and responsible approach to legalisation were persuasive. The public would be left to judge who had the better of the argument, and whether the Prime Minister's bold move would ultimately prove to be a success or a disaster. The verdict? Well, this debate was a draw. Both sides made valid points, and the issue of cannabis legalisation is complex and multifaceted. The outcome will depend on how the government implements its policies and addresses the concerns of those opposed to legalisation. Well, there you go. What a riveting debate there with, who is it? Alistair Thorne and Eleanor Davies, the Prime Minister. Did I get that right? Yeah, sure. Alistair Thorne and Eleanor Davies, the opposition and the Prime Minister. Fake news. How was that? I thought that was good. Riveting debate. Can you imagine that happening in Parliament? That's what we need to do. We need to get this debate into Parliament. So who's going to do it? Will the Lib Dems do it? The Greens do it? Someone's going to push forward some kind of idea, some motion, some bill. I don't know how it works specifically in Parliament, but someone's going to bring it up at Prime Minister's question times, perhaps. You know, and I think it's got to be to the tune of, well, like they said, the money. Give them the money. Take the money from the tax, from the cannabis tax that they will put on. The money, and what else is going to be important? Well, I think we just don't want to look bad on the global scene. I think the global scene is starting to heat up with cannabis legalization around the world. So I think we're looking like numpties, backwards, you know. So it's time to embrace change and embrace the future of cannabis legalization. I've been Shiva Wilson. You've been watching me. I've been staring at a screen, staring at a camera. And so thanks very much for watching. I've been Shiva Wilson. And well, you can subscribe for more, but I presume you already are subscribed. If you're not, subscribe for more. I've been Shiva Wilson again, trying to legalise recreational cannabis in the UK. Good night.